Hello happy crafters and welcome back to a brand new video. I have so many different spring DIY projects that I want to share with you today with things that I got from the Dollar Tree. So stick around for some fun projects.
It all just goes away. The things I plan to say, oh baby.
So for this craft, we're going to start with a Dollar Tree cutting board. Now I've had a really hard time lately finding these plastic cutting boards in my Dollar Tree, but if you can find them, I would highly encourage you to grab some. So this is just a plastic cutting board and I'm painting it with white chalk paint. I'm going to paint the entire surface with the white chalk paint, and it did take 2 coats of the chalk paint to really make sure that that red was not showing through. And after the paint had dried, I did put a coat of Mod Podge onto the chalk paint because the plastic surface is prone to scratches. So I find that if I use a coat of Mod Podge, it really helps to protect the painted surface. Then I took a little bit of Waverly Gray chalk paint and I used my favorite dry brushing technique to make this look a little bit aged onto the cutting board. And I don't want true brush strokes showing up on the cutting board. I want it to look a little bit older, and by using a dry brush style technique for painting, it really gives a nice finish. I think it gives a really nice farmhouse finish. But my cutting board is not going to be a cutting board. Oh no, this is going to have lots of flowers on it. And I had these bunches of lavender floral. So I picked off some of the flower pieces and then I added a little bit of greenery. Now at this point, I'm just kind of playing around and seeing what this is going to look like. Nothing has been glued down yet. Next, I added in some Dollar Tree baby's breath, or gypsophilia, I think it's called. And when I was happy with that, then it was time to secure all of these floral pieces onto the cutting board. So I started with the lavender first, and using my hot glue gun, I glued each individual piece to the cutting board. And I know that you know how to glue the individual pieces down, but I wanted to show the entire process of this because of the way I did it. I had 5 pieces of the lavender, and the center piece is actually higher and the other pieces are a little bit lower going down. Next, I secured the greenery pieces on, and the final part of the floral is attaching the baby's breath. I did separate the baby's breath into individual stems. I like that look a little bit better. It just looked more cohesive with the lavender and the greenery. Now for the next part, I'm going to be making a burlap pocket for the cutting board. So I had this burlap and I secured that to one side of the cutting board using my hot glue gun. Now I wanted this to look like a pocket, so I glued it in first and then bent over the burlap so that it will look like a pocket. And on the other side, I did the same process. I just folded the burlap over and then hot glued it in place. And because the burlap is pretty see-through, I did repeat the process with another row of the burlap ribbon. And the burlap ribbon that I'm using, it does not have the wire edge. I found that that worked best for this project. And with the second layer of the burlap ribbon, you can't see the stems of the flowers now, and that was what I wanted. Now I did repeat the process as I went down the cutting board, but the burlap was too big, so I did have to cut that ribbon down so it would fit onto the cutting board. But it was easy to keep the ribbon straight because of the burlap. You can see the lines that act as a guide as you're cutting. And just like the first layer of the burlap, I did 2 layers for the lower section as well. And once the burlap was all secured onto the front of the cutting board, I took some jute twine and I wrapped that around the middle section of the cutting board, so in between the 2 layers of the burlap. And I secured this in place with hot glue and a craft stick on the back of the cutting board, and then I just wrapped the jute twine around the cutting board. Now I wasn't having this all go in the same direction. I wanted it to be spread out a little bit while I was wrapping it. And once I was happy with the jute twine wrapping, then I secured the jute to the back of the cutting board with another piece of craft stick. And for the finishing touch, I did want to add a small bow, so I just did a regular bow out of jute twine. And I glued it in place over where I had wrapped the jute. I think that looks so pretty. And this is the finished project. I think it looks adorable. I really am so happy with how this turned out. I do want to make more of these, but again, it's really hard to find these cutting boards lately in my Dollar Tree. What about your Dollar Tree? Do they have cutting boards? Now this is a really fun project and it's so easy. Now I got this at Hobby Lobby when it was on clearance. It was $1.79. So it's not Dollar Tree, but it's pretty close to a Dollar Tree price. So this was a pretty sign and I just loved the size of it, but I'm not going to be using it as a sign. So the first thing I had to do was remove the hanger from the back. And next I took some white chalk paint and I painted the entire piece with the white chalk paint. Now this already had like a black chalk background, which made it pretty easy for the chalk paint to adhere to. So I just made sure to paint all of the surfaces with the white paint. And once the first coat of paint was dry, I did go back and paint it one more time with another layer. And I wanted to make sure it looked super smooth. And one trick I've learned to make this happen is to squirt a little bit of water onto the project that you're painting and then smooth it out with your paintbrush. I've had really good results with this on my projects, and I just thought I would share that with you. And you're probably wondering, what is this going to be? It just looks like a tray, and that's exactly what it is. It's just a riser tray that I made to elevate different decor pieces. It's the perfect size to create a little vignette or just add a little something extra to your decorating. Now for this project, I didn't show you the painting, but I painted this with gray and black chalk paint. And once it was dry, I did give it a coat of Mod Podge. Then when that was dry, I came back with a chip brush and I dry brushed some white chalk paint onto this cutting board. And this is a cutting board that I found at Dollar Tree during the fall. I think it says pumpkins on the back, but I really like this style of a cutting board and I wanted to give it a more farmhouse feel, which is why I painted it. Next, using my Cricut machine, I did cut out some vinyl words to put onto the cutting board. And I've really been enjoying the HBO series of Julia Child, and the Bon Appetit just really makes me happy. So I wanted to add something with Bon Appetit to my kitchen decor with a little bit of a farmhouse flair. So I cut out the letters of Bon Appetit, and then I transferred them onto the cutting board. And if you are just getting into Cricut and vinyl cutting, I do have a lot of videos that give different tips and tricks to help make your beginning Cricut process a little bit easier, which I will leave links to in the description box below. And then I just transferred the Bon Appetit to the cutting board. And to finish it off, I wanted to add some greenery to the top of the cutting board. And I was looking for floral pieces that look like rosemary, but I wasn't having any luck. So I had these stems and I went ahead and attached them to the top or the handle of the cutting board. But they weren't quite long enough, so I took a little bit more and I just put one extra piece on each side, making it look like they are just long pieces of greenery. And to finish it off, I made a tiny little bow that I could put at the top of the greenery. These are my favorite bows to make. And using my hot glue gun, I secured that tiny little bow to the top of the greenery. And there is my cutting board. And here it is hanging up in my kitchen. I love this cutting board, something so simple, but it really gives a little bit of something extra in the kitchen and it fills up an empty space. Now I need to figure out what to put on top of that. For this next project, I'm going to use this sign from the Dollar Tree, "Come gather at our table." It's really cute, and that is going to be the bottom of my project. But I'm going to go ahead and remove that gather, and it did stay in one piece, so maybe I can use that in a future project. Then I took some little wood turnings and I glued those to the bottom of the sign, or I guess the top of the sign where the lettering is, because like I said, this is going to be the bottom, and these are going to be the feet for my tray. And I love making riser trays like these. They're so easy, and the Dollar Tree has so many different things that make it really easy to make trays like this. And the wood glue is so affordable. I did take that and just fill in all around the corners of the sign because I don't want it to fall down. I need to make sure it's going to be strong enough to hold what I'm going to be putting onto my tray. And I wanted to give this tray a more springtime or summertime feel, so I painted it with terracotta paint. And I believe this is Anita's acrylic paint that I got at Hobby Lobby in the color terracotta. It did take several coats of the paint to make sure everything was covered. I didn't want any of that original sign to show through, so I just did one coat, let it dry, did another coat, and then a third coat. And this is the end result, and I have a little terracotta tray. But again, I do find that this acrylic paint does scratch easily, so I did coat it with a nice heavy coat of Mod Podge. And I find that the Mod Podge works really well for coating any project that where you could potentially have some scratching occur. It seals the project and protects it from little dings. Next, I got these at the Dollar Tree. They're a set of 3 for $1.25, and they are terracotta. They do have some dings in them, so they're not exactly perfect, but I spray painted them all with this white high gloss paint that I got at Home Depot. I found that the Home Depot spray paint is very affordable and a lot less expensive than most of the spray paints today. Then I just took some faux greenery and some little white flowers and put them into the terracotta pots. And I've created this adorable terracotta tray, and it holds these little planters perfectly. Now I'm going to show you how easy it is to make a sign. So did you see that sign that was hanging above the planter? So easy. I got that at Dollar Tree, and then using my Cricut machine and some black vinyl, I found a font that looks like handwriting. So I made a little sign that says, "Where flowers bloom, so does hope." And I thought, how appropriate is that for spring? So once it was cut out, I just had to secure it to the tile. And there was nothing else that I really needed to do to this sign. But I did create a hanger with wooden beads so I could hang it up and give it a farmhouse feel. I think that is so pretty and so perfect for spring. All right, for this project, I was inspired by Pottery Barn. I wanted to make some candle holders. I found these glass bowls at Dollar Tree. They are 4 for $1.25, and those are perfect for my candle cups. And I already had these styrofoam cones. I just cut off the top portion of the cone. Now I probably will save those for a project in the future, but one of the cones was taller, which was the look I wanted. And once I had the tops of the cones cut off, I used liquid nails to secure that top little bowl to the styrofoam. Liquid nails is an incredible adhesive, and it's really affordable. And I did wait about 24 hours before moving on to the painting process, but I started with some black acrylic paint and then I added in some plaster. And this is one way that you can create chalk paint if you don't have any. And depending on how much plaster you add, that will determine how thick the paint is going to be. So for my first coat of this, I just wanted to cover everything, so the paint is more runny. And I painted the entire piece. So the bowl, the cone, everything got a coat of this paint. And once that was dry, I did go back with a second coat of paint. You can see what the color looks like when it was dry. It was more of a gray color. So I added in a little bit more plaster because I want it to be a little bit thicker. And I repainted both of these pieces with the thicker homemade chalk paint. It's kind of a plaster paint now more than a chalk paint, but it does dry lighter. But I found that by adding a little bit more plaster, that definitely gives some more texture to the paint. And you can see how light these get when they dry. And then I took them out into the garage and I coated them with this faux stone spray paint. Now this is getting really expensive. I think I got this at Hobby Lobby and it was $12.99, so it was very expensive, but I will be able to do a lot of projects with it. And I like that look. It gives kind of a pebbled appearance. And the more coats of this stone effect spray paint you add, the more stone-like it will appear. And here are my cute little candle cups, ready to get their candles. I would only use like these faux candles. I wouldn't put real candles in these. I think they make a really nice addition to my decorating. I've been inspired by Pottery Barn a lot, so this is also a Pottery Barn inspired project. So I found these butterfly stickers at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to take some gold paint and I'm going to brush the edges of the wings of the butterflies with the gold paint. And the stickers are like a cardstock. So they're kind of heavy duty, but they're just cut out butterflies. Next, I had this Dollar Tree sign and I went ahead and removed all of the embellishments. So those little hearts had to go. And using some white chalk paint, I painted the entire frame, the picture, everything white. Now, as always, with these Dollar Tree signs, it did take 2 coats of paint to completely cover everything so that nothing was showing through. So there is my finished sign, and here are my butterflies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend the wings of the butterflies up so it looks like they're flying. So I did that with all of the butterflies. And next I attach them to the back of this frame. And I wanted it to look like the butterflies were flying away. So I started at the bottom corner and then I just worked my way out, adding a few more butterflies with each row. And there it is. That was easy, wasn't it? This is so cute. I really like this little sign. I think it makes a really nice addition to my spring decor. Now for this project, we're going to make a planter, and I'm going to use this metal planter that I got at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using this spackling to cover the entire planter. The spackling is a little bit messy, so I did put on some gloves to keep my hands nice and clean. And while I'm doing this, I'm putting a pattern into the spackling onto the planter. Because when I'm making planters like this, I love texture. And the spackling compound really does give a lot of texture to a project. And while you're watching me spackle, why not hit that subscribe button? Then click the bell notification. That way you'll be alerted every time I have a new video coming out. Here is the texture that I was able to create on this project just by using some spackling. Isn't that pretty? And once the spackling was dry, I did go ahead and paint that with a soft yellow paint. And the spackling itself is not very strong, so I want to make sure that it is going to stay in place for the next step of my project. So I did give it a coat of sealer with some Mod Podge. Mod Podge is the best sealer. It's so affordable. And once that was dry, I took some white chalk paint, but I only want the white paint to go on the raised portions of the spackling, so I'm not going to use a lot of paint. And then I'm just using a circular motion, working my way around the planter to highlight all of that texture. It also really lightens up that yellow, so it's not quite so yellow. Once the planter was dry, I had put some floral foam into the center of it, and then using these pretty pinkish hydrangeas that I got at Michael's, I put them and the leaves into the planter. Michael's has the prettiest spring flowers. They are a little bit more expensive, but when you can find them on sale, these flowers are definitely something that I look forward to every spring. I love how that looks. They're so pretty. And this is a close-up of the texture of the planter. I love painting like this. It really gives some dimension to a project, and I think it looks great. Now for this project, I'm going to use this Dollar Tree vase or candle holder. I really like that style, but for my vase, I don't need that lip. So I'm going to secure some white cotton rope to the vase because I want it to be all the same size, as I'm going to wrap this cotton rope all around the vase. So I wanted to make sure that that lip that was on this little candle holder was gone. So I filled that in first with the piece of the rope, and then I secured a piece of the cotton rope to the bottom of the candle holder. Now, I don't think there's really any right or wrong way how to do this. Sometimes I start at the top, sometimes I start at the bottom. It just depends on my mood more than anything. But for this one, I did start at the top of the planter, and then I worked my way around, working with small sections of the rope as I glued it onto the glass candle holder. I think the most important thing is just to go slowly until you get it finished. Don't rush the process. And once I got to the top, I did want to cover everything. So I don't want to see any of that original candle holder. So I went ahead and glued the rope to itself. So this looks like it is completely made of rope. Very cute. Then I found these Dollar Tree floral pieces, and I really like them. They are so pretty and spring-like, and they're really nice quality. They look like they would come from Michael's. They didn't look like they would come from the Dollar Tree. So I separated each of the floral stems, and using my Husky nipping tools, I cut them down to the size that I wanted them to be. I did end up using 2 bundles of flowers for this project. And to give it more of a farmhouse feel, I wrapped the stems with some jute twine. And to keep my stems standing upright in my vase, I took a pool noodle and then cut it down so that it would fit into my vase. And then all I had to do was put in the pretty little flowers. And they're standing up just fine in the center, but you can still see down into the center. So I took a little bit of Spanish moss and I pushed that down into my planter. That way you won't see that pool noodle. And here is my adorable little farmhouse planter for spring. There's another rope basket that I made. I think these are so pretty, and they would be a perfect addition for your farmhouse spring decor. Now for this project, what I'm going to be doing is making terracotta planters using these round boxes from the Dollar Tree. I did go ahead and paint them. You've seen me paint 100 times. You don't need to see me paint them. So I painted the main section white with chalk paint. Then I used terracotta on the bottom, which is the lid. So the lid would have been on the top, but now it's going to be the bottom to make this look like a really fancy planter. I was having a difficult time making the lid fit onto the bottom of the round box. Round box? How can a box be round? But this one's round. And I tried the pool noodle, but that wasn't really working very well. So I did take some thin slices of floral foam and put that into the bottom of the lid. And when I saw that would work, I secured it in place with some hot glue. The floral foam is nice because you can kind of smush it down, and it worked perfect for this project. So now these round Dollar Tree containers actually look like really nice planters. And using some more of that floral foam, I secured a big chunk into the center of the planters before putting my greenery in. And these are the planters all completed with the flowers. I think they look so nice. They definitely don't look like they came from the Dollar Tree, and they look like fancy planters. And with that, we have reached the end of the video. Oh my goodness, where did the time go? Well, I hope you enjoyed all of the different spring DIY projects, and hopefully I've inspired you to go into your craft room and make some decor pieces for your own spring decorating.